Hello and welcome to Take Flight. From your own or your company's point of view, compliance with regulations can be something of a headache, but pilot rostering is one area where Take Flight helps to make your life easier. This short video is aimed at the people in the aviation industry who deal with pilot rostering and who have to be familiar or at the very least be aware of the Civil Aviation Safety Authority flight and duty time regulations. Although these regulations affect the full extent of civil flight operations, in this clip we'll just be giving you an overview. Other more detailed aspects like recent experience requirements, commonly referred to as recency, and pilot flying eligibility are dealt with in separate video clips of their own. From the daily overview screen, your two commonest questions are likely to be: how do I know when I can assign my pilots to flights? And how do my pilots know what they're doing and when? Before we can look into any of this though, we need to check that the flight and duty time regulations are switched on, and this needs to be done by someone with admin user rights. No one else can edit or change these settings. The place to look, if you have these access rights, is from the daily overview screen in the pilot and the staff roster, then the Part 48 rules button. The particular regulations relating to your type of flying operations are customized here on these tabbed screens. Where a flying business is multi-operational, you can have different regulatory settings for the different flight crew and create groups for them. We won't go into further detail here, that's for other video clips. So now back to the daily overview screen and the questions you'll be asking. This daily overview screen shows us that most flights have been assigned aircraft, but 2 flights remain to have aircraft assigned to them. The simplest way to assign an aircraft to a flight is to drag and drop. Like this. Simply click on the flight, drag and then drop it into the aircraft that you're selecting. If you get it wrong, don't worry, just re-click and then drop it into the correct aircraft. Alternatively, you can right click on a flight, click on select aircraft and then choose your aircraft manually. You might have noticed a right click on the flight, the pilot is selected from a drop-down list that appears next to the aircraft, and select saves the changes. You can also select pilots using a drag and drop facility. To do that, you need to be in the pilot overview screen. In the pilot overview screen, we can immediately see which flights need pilots to be assigned, and it's a simple task to drag and drop. Once aircraft and flight crew are assigned, on this overview screen nothing will seem out of place, as each scheduled flight has an aircraft and a pilot. So the next stage is to work with the pilot overview screen and the pilot and staff roster screen, and we find that many Take Flight clients like to use a split screen or 2-monitor approach for this. If we start in the flight staff and pilot roster screen, we can see the flight hours the pilot has been selected for, but the duty hours aren't yet specified, and it's in this screen that any rule breaks will show. At this stage, we'll introduce the pilot overview screen. Here the screen is split with the pilot overview screen on the left and the staff and pilot roster screen on the right. And it's in this screen that any rule break will show. On the left hand screen we can see the flight times. The pilot needs duty hours to cover this, and you can enter it manually with a right click, adding a new working time entry. Much easier, and to avoid unnecessary error, you can right click and auto assign the duty times, and these will be automatically adjusted for the pre and post flight check times that the regulations require. If everything's okay, the flight hours become white. If they're shown in a colour, we can go ahead with the flight, because in this example the pilot's okay to fly but is 70% of the way towards breaking a rule. So we now have the flight with its aircraft and pilot assigned, and we need to notify the pilot that he's been rostered for this flight. Find the flight on the pilot overview screen, right click and notify the pilot. The entry changes its colour, telling you that the pilot's been notified. But it needn't just have changed your roster. It can also have been sent to the pilot by SMS text or by email, or both. If we go back to the setup and look at the pilot's details, we can see his mobile phone number and also his email address, and if this is kept up to date, then as you click notify, your pilot is automatically sent whichever method you choose. Of course, if a pilot has access to a browser, then he or she can check out the pilot overview screen that also works on an iPhone. So that answers both your questions. How do I know when I can assign my pilots to flights, and how do my pilots know what they're doing and when? But there always seem to be days when things don't go right first time, so let's see how to fix them. Here in the flight staff and pilot roster screen, the color coding shows us immediately whether we're approaching a rule break or we've already broken them. You can identify a rule break by hovering over the entry, and then by right clicking you can view the particular rules and see which ones you have to correct. It may be fixable quite easily by rescheduling duties, or you may need to find a different pilot for the flight. While working in the staff pilot roster screen, we'll have a look to see how easy it is to book other duties, sickness and holiday leave. Simply identify the pilot, define the dates, and then right click and add new. You can also do several days at one entry in this way. For multi-leg flights or extended flying days, you can make a split entry specifying the rest or sleep times. One final tip you might like to consider is that when using the flight staff and pilot roster screen for forward roster planning, it's worth having at least a 28-day view, as you'll see each pilot approaching their flying hour limits. So that's a brief introduction as to how TakeFlight can help you with your flight crew rostering, making it so much easier to comply with the flight and duty time regulations and to keep your business running smoothly, safely and profitably. Thanks for watching.